This is Greg Penglis for Action Radio with Founding Moments, insights into our founding documents, sponsored by Santa Rosa Volunteers here in Santa Rosa County, Florida. Santa Rosa Volunteers is available at their website, SRV1776.com. That's SRV1776.com. This is part two of perhaps the most brilliant piece of founders' writing after the Declaration of Independence by Thomas Jefferson and The Crisis by Thomas Paine. And for this one, I have no idea who wrote it. I'm going to jump around a bit to get you caught up with Federalist Papers number 6 and the folly of the arguments of Publius, aka John Jay, and his preposterous assumption that the Constitution has to be ratified or the estates under the Articles of Confederation will break into 3 or 4 separate confederacies and the Union will be lost. The fact that no such evidence or circumstance for this exists is irrelevant to the elitists pushing the Constitution for their own personal gain and power. Pretty much what goes on today. So here is what Sentinel, pen name of the author of Anti-Federalist number 6, said about John Jay's arguments. This hobgoblin appears to have sprung from the deranged brain of Publius, a New York writer who, mistaking sound for argument, has with Herculean labor accumulated myriads of unmeaning sentences and mechanically endeavored to force conviction by a torrent of misplaced words. He might have spared his readers the fatigue of wading through his long-winded disquisitions on the direful effects of the contentions of inimical states as totally inapplicable to the subject he was professedly treating. This writer has devoted much time and wasted more paper in combating chimeras of his own creation. That's how you insult someone, founder style. When it comes to explaining the reasons behind John Jay's arguments that the United States will descend into despotism and fracture, all from no evidence, logic, or reason for such events to suddenly take place if the Articles of Confederation remain in force, even though no such action or suggestion of such action had taken place under the Articles so far. Sentinel then says this: the source of the apprehensions of this so much dreaded anarchy would, upon investigation, be found to arise from the artful suggestions of designing men, and not from a rational probability grounded on the actual state of affairs. The least reflection is sufficient to detect the fallacy to show that there is no one circumstance to justify the prediction of such an event. On the contrary, a short time will evince, to the utter dismay and confusion of the conspirators, that a perseverance in cramming down their scheme of power upon the freemen of this state, Pennsylvania, will inevitably produce an anarchy destructive of their darling domination, and may kindle a flame prejudicial to their safety. They should be cautious not to trespass too far on the forbearance of freemen when resting their dearest concerns, but prudently retreat from the gathering storm. The whole point to me of John Jay using false arguments for the Constitution are to generate fear, because people with fear can be led to places they would never go otherwise. Take a look at the entire response to COVID from government. Every bit of it is based on fear, on preposterous arguments of hiding and suppressing evidence of relief, and of making people do things they would never do using their own judgment and choice. Just like when considering the Constitution at our founding, fear is used to abandon completely the Articles of Confederation, where only minor amendments might have sufficed. Sentinel then says this: the other specter that has been raised to terrify and alarm the people out of their exercise of their judgment on this great occasion is the dread of our splitting into separate confederacies or republics that might become rival powers and consequently liable to mutual wars from the usual motives of contention. This is an event still more improbable than the foregoing. It is a presumption unwarranted either by the situation of affairs or the sentiments of the people. No disposition leading to it exists. The advocates of the new Constitution seem to view such a separation with horror, and its opponents are strenuously contending for a confederation that shall embrace all America under its comprehensive and salutary protection. Sentinel continues by considering John Jay's arguments of the necessity of the Constitution, or else. I will admit that the necessary consequence of rejecting or delaying the establishment of the new Constitution would be the dissolution of the Union and the institution of even rival and inimical republics. Yet ought such an apprehension, if well-founded, to drive us into the fangs of despotism. Infinitely preferable would be the occasional wars to such an event. The former, although a severe scourge, is transient in its continuance, and in its operations partial, but a small proportion of the community are exposed to its greatest horrors, and yet fewer experience its greatest evils. The latter is permanent and universal misery, without remission or exception. As passing clouds obscure for a time the specter of the sun, so do wars interrupt the welfare of mankind. But despotism is a settled gloom that totally extinguishes happiness. Not a ray of comfort can penetrate to cheer the dejected mind. The goad of power, with unabating rigor, insists upon the utmost exaction. Like a merciless taskmaster, it is continually inflicting the lash, and is never satiated with the feast of unfeeling domination or the most abject servility. My comment is that this brilliant expose of the fraud of the Federalists is the perfect precursor to the fraud of the deep state today. And as they try to resurrect the globalist cabal in control, which Trump actually challenged successfully, and they try to reduce our country to an everlasting gloom of work, taxes, and death, people all over the country are learning, just as the country did in the 1700s, that doom and gloom is not inevitable, and that a powerful, dominating elite is not in control because they say they are, and that nothing is preordained to get us there, or keep us there. However, then as now, all that is necessary for powerful elites to run everything, gather all the power to themselves, and to let them accumulate all the wealth and property for themselves, is to believe their lies, do nothing, and then complain every step on the way down to tyranny that somebody should do something. Well, that somebody is you. The source for the Federalist Papers is federalistpapers.org. The Anti-Federalist Papers are from selfeducatedamerican.com. The Articles of Confederation are from usconstitution.net. This is Greg Penglis for Action Radio with Founding Moments, sponsored by Santa Rosa Volunteers. Their website is srv1776.com. That's srv1776.com. Please share this report to anyone who needs it.